Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to make this pretty wreath card and get ready for Christmas. It's nice to have a few different designs that we can make ahead of time because it just keeps us from getting bored from making a lot of the same handmade Christmas cards. The stamps I'm using today are from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry, and they have so many great stamps that go together. And what I actually did last week is I went through and I wrote the names of the stamp sets actually on the sides of my peg stamps, so that way I could kind of keep them organized, but then I could mix and match them really easily. I find that you can mix and match so easily to get a lot of versatility from your stamps. Make sure you check out the video description for a link to the products that I used today and also this week's coupon code. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of white cardstock and we're going to draw a circle on it so we have a template for our wreath. And I'm just going to use a pencil for this. If you need to erase the lines later, you can, but if you don't, then a lot of times our ink will just kind of cover that up and we won't even see it. So the first thing I'm going to stamp is a bow. So I'm going to do that in some nice red ink. And I'm going to put that on the bottom part of my wreath. And then I've also cut out a little bow. I stamped it on a Post-it note and I cut it out to make a little mask. And that way we'll be able to stamp all our layers on top of this and not worry about messing up our bow. I just stamped it on the sticky portion of a Post-it note. So I've got a couple different holly stamps here. This one I bought individually. This is just a kind of a big holly sprig, and then this one came in another kit, and it just has a lot more filler space in it. And I'm going to stamp this with my darkest green. And there's the registration mark is going to show you where the stem of the holly starts. And I am just going to line that up on my pencil drawn mark there. And I'm going to work my way around my my circle. And don't worry about it being perfect because it's going to look more natural if you have a little leaf sticking out here and there. You don't want it to look like, you know, mechanically done. You want it to be natural looking. I do notice that the leaves kind of curve this way, so that's why I'm stamping it going around the circle this way instead of going around the other way, because then I'd have more sticking out pieces. There we go. And then to fill in, I'm using this holly wreath here. I'm going with a slightly lighter shade, and I'm going to work around the wreath going in the opposite direction. And it's really just going to help me fill in. Now there's other greenery you could make wreaths with. You could use almost any leaves from any of your peg stamp sets. I like this one because it's got a lot of open space, and you can turn it too so that you can see registration marks. It's got a lot of open space, so I know when I stamp some berries I'll be able to see them. And if you don't have a berry stamp, you could always use like a toothpick with some paint on it, and you could do that as well. So I've got this little berry branch. That's going to make it a lot quicker to do the stamps. And what I did here, this was a tip from the owner of Rubber Stamp Tapestry. She said if you're getting halos around your image, to just kind of gently peel up the foam and cut it with scissors. So that's what I did. I cut the edges off so I would stop getting like little circles around. Like if I didn't ink out, if I rocked my if I rocked my stamp on my ink pad and I picked up ink on the edge, that will prevent that. So I thought that was a really handy tip and I wanted to share that. So I'm just going to go and stamp some of these berry vines around. I'm not trying to line it right up on the circle because I don't want to I don't want a circle of the berries. I want it a little bit more loose and random looking. And I can go in, you can go in and add any others that you think. You could even just kind of get one of the edges if you feel like you just want a little bit of berries here or there. I think that's really pretty. Okay, so for cutting this out, I recommend cutting out the insides first because it's a lot easier to do. And I've just got a plain old X-Acto knife here, and I'm going to move this out of the way so I have my cutting surface right there. And I am just going to I find it a little easier to start by making an X in the middle, because that way I'm only cutting a small area at a time. And then I could even go in there with scissors after if I didn't, if this is awkward. I think I'm just gonna go in with scissors because look at that. That's kind of awkward. But I can go in with my paper crafting scissors and get that cleaned up in no time. So I find it a little bit easier to go in here with my scissors once I get the X cut out. And I also find it easier to move the paper rather than trying to move my scissors as I'm trying to get around these different shapes. It would be difficult to try to cut this beforehand because you don't know exactly where all your little branches are going to end up, so I think this works pretty well. Oh, and you can remove your mask here and see your cool bow on the front there. So now I'm just going to go around and I am going to cut the outside of the wreath just like I did on the inside with my scissors. If you want your bow to stand out a little bit more, you can go in with a matching green marker and just kind of add a little shadow around it too. Just kind of add some little scribbly marks that could look like some of those lighter colored holly leaves. And that just makes it stand out a little bit more. If you did this on a toned paper like a cream or a gray or like maybe a sage green, you could actually go in with a white gel pen and put highlights on the ribbon to make it stand up a little bit more too. I'm a really big believer in combining your stamps with stuff you might already have in your stash, and I've had this Pretty Christmas, Merry Christmas ribbon stamp for probably about 10 years. It's an old Martha Stewart stamp, and I thought this would make a really nice elegant sentiment. So I'm going to use the same color ink that I used for the berries and the bow to ink this up. You do have to be a little careful when you're using something that's got so much solid color. You have to make sure you have it inked up really well. It should all look nice and shiny. And then when you go to stamp it down, you're going to make sure you don't rock it, and you want to hold it for a few seconds to make sure you get plenty of time for the ink to transfer from the rubber stamp all the way onto your cardstock. And you want to make sure you're using a fairly smooth cardstock. This is just inexpensive Georgia Pacific cardstock from, you know, Sam's Club or Walmart, and we get a really nice impression that actually does even out the more it dries. And I am just going to trim this out, and that's going to be another element for our card. This card, making it start to finish, really only takes about 10 minutes. If you assembly line style this, like you stamp all of your wreaths together, you stamp all of your sentiments together, you do everything in batches like that, it actually takes the card making time down to a little bit shorter. So keep that in mind. If you're going to do more than a couple of these, you might want to batch it out. Last year, before Christmas time, I picked up a bunch of pre-made card packs at Michael's, and I had one that was all shades of green and red, and I thought these would be perfect for holiday cards. I used some for last year's Christmas cards, and I have some left over, so I used the green one of the green ones on this example, and I'm going to use a red one here, just so you can see the difference and see what you like best. For the main panel that I am going to put down on the card, I've got this pretty sage pattern, and I want it to have a deckled edge. And a tip that I have found that's really nice for this, if you have them, is to use a quilter's grid for tearing your paper down. So what I do is I basically just line up, and I apologize for any glare that's on there, I line up the grids with like the corner of my paper, so I can kind of just tear off a small amount, and I hold it down really tight, and I just tear against it. These are kind of handy to grab when they're on, like when you have a coupon or they're on really good sale at your craft store, or if you have some thin stamping blocks or cutting pads from your die cut machine, if they have a nice sharp edge, you can do that as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then what I like to do is just kind of eyeball it. So I'll put this on my card just to get an idea about how much I want to have showing. And then again, I will line up my grid. So it's got the grids all the way through, so I find that really handy. And I can tear off what I like. And if it doesn't tear all the way in one go, just kind of bend the paper up around the grid and just pull some off. And there you get a really nice looking mat there. And I'm just going to adhere that down to my background. And I think that the deckled edge is just such a classic look. I don't think it goes out of style. You could even use your deckled edge scissors if you still have some from back in the scrapbooking day if you're crafting at that point. Another thing I want to do is make a deckled edge circle for my to go under my wreath as a mat. So what I'm going to do is find a template to trace. Let's see, that's a little, this is about the same size as the outside of my wreath. So I'm just going to flip this over. I know I need to tear it a little bit bigger, so I am just going to just make a circle there, and then I am just going to tear it by hand around that circle, just using the circle as a guide. Remember, it does not have to be perfect. I just want to make a just kind of a rustic looking, vintage looking mat. If you had like a cup that was just the right size, like a drinking glass, you could actually hold it down and tear around the drinking glass. I just don't have anything like that down here in my studio. And let's see how that looks lined up. That looks pretty good. And then I want a piece of this paper that's just a little bit wider than my ribbon here that I'm going to stick down. And I think I want a deckled edge on that too, and I'm going to use my quilting grid again for that. I'm going to start just by tearing as close to the place I've ripped as I can, so that way I don't waste any paper. And then I'll just figure out how wide I want it. And I can tear this side. There we go. And this is going to go on our card as well. I like to glue it down first and then just trim it. And when I trim it, I generally flip it over, so I'm just seeing, it's easier to see on the back side what to remove. Okay, I want to use some dimensional tape on the wreath to make it stand out a little bit more, so I have these little foam tabs. Then I just need to remove the tabs on the back of my wreath, on the sticky tabs, and I can put that right on top, and I just want my ribbon in the center bottom. And then I just need to put oh, you know what I forgot? Oh, I forgot something. That's all right. You have a little time to move that before you're all done. I forgot my pretty ribbon that I had already cut. This is just some printed grosgrain ribbon. I think a solid ribbon would also look pretty. I like grosgrain because it doesn't fray. And I just V-notched the ends. I cut it to size and V-notched the ends there. Let's put that down first. There we go. That makes a big difference, doesn't it? Just having that green there. I think so. There, that you got to see it without and with, and you got to see why that makes such a big impact. And then I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back of that sentiment strip that we stamped. And we'll just center that right up there. And there you have it. This totally would not be too much work to batch up. And I think they make really lovely keepsake cards. I know a lot of people keep the cards, the handmade cards that I send. And I know people that scrapbook with them. My mother will save all the cards that she gets. She puts them in a scrapbook. She actually will put photos that people send her with the holiday cards right next to them in the scrapbook. And it's really a beautiful keepsake and a way to kind of keep Christmas in your heart all year round, because all you have to do is take the book off the shelf and have a look at it. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you want to see the stamps that I use, check out the links in the video description. I'll have links to these stamps at pegstamps.com. That's rubber stamp tapestry, and I'll have a coupon code so you can save some money on your order. I want to thank you so much for watching today. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And until next time, happy crafting!